She quietly left the palace and went straight to the river. She was watching the water flow when she heard a voice ask her what she was doing there so early. She turned around in fear and saw a very handsome man. He introduced himself as Temidayo. Once upon a time, there lived a king who was a very powerful and influential man and ruled his people with love and integrity. He had a daughter named Abike. Princess Abike was his only child, and she was so much loved by her father, and he always wanted the best for her. But she was a very rude lady, especially to people who had little or nothing at all. She had maids who were ready to do anything at her beck and call and would order them around at her bidding. Everyone in the palace was scared of upsetting her because she would lash out at them. The only person she really listened to was her father. Princess Abike loved taking strolls around the village, and as she was strolling out one evening, a little boy ran past her and mistakenly poured dust on her. She screamed at the child, and he began crying, telling her that it was just a mistake. She hissed at him and went about her day as if he never apologized. She was known for being condescending all around the village, and on different occasions, she had acted really cruel towards the villagers. One sunny day, the king summoned for Princess Abike and told her that the prince of another kingdom was coming to pay her a visit, as she was interested in getting married to her. She was excited that her time had finally come to get married, and she could not wait to see him. A few weeks later, Prince Lanre arrived at the palace, and Abike, immediately setting her eyes on him, fell in love with him. He was a very handsome and good-looking young man. He stayed at the kingdom for a few weeks in order for Princess Abike to get to know him better, and vice versa. Those few weeks were like a fairy tale to her. Prince Lanre was her dream come true, and she couldn't wait to get married to him. One day, while she was taking a stroll along the village with her father and Prince Lanre, they came across a few villagers who ran to them begging for things. They usually experience this, but what caught the king's attention was a young man, Kola, who didn't join the crowd to beg, but pleaded with the king to give him an opportunity to work for him so he could get paid for his services. The king marveled at the young man and immediately granted his request. He asked that Kola resume the next day as the palace gardener because the former gardener had just resigned. Kola was so grateful. The next day, as instructed, Kola resumed as a gardener at the king's palace, and working in the palace came with some benefits. All the staff of the palace were entitled to daily free meal. Kola was so happy as he was from a poor background, so this meant so much to him. One evening, while Prince Lanre was in his room, he heard screams and quickly ran out to know what was going on. To his greatest surprise, he saw that it was Princess Abike that was screaming at the maids at the top of her voice. The reason for raising her voice at them was that they didn't come to pick up her dirty laundry from her room on time. Kola, the new gardener, tried calming the situation down by explaining to Abike that the maids had been very busy all day, and that was why they hadn't found the time to get her dirty clothes from her room. But Abike was not ready for any excuses. She shunned him and walked away. Prince Lanre followed behind her, and when they were away from everyone, he asked her why she was shouting at the top of her voice. She explained everything to him, and he couldn't believe it. He explained to her that that was not a good enough reason for her to talk to the maids in that manner, except it was now becoming a habit of them to delay in doing their chores or if she needed to use the clothes immediately. But since that was not the case, he advised that she should not talk to them in such a manner. Princess Abigail told him that they were mere maids and she could speak to them anyhow she liked. Lanre was flabbergasted as he could not understand why she was so condescending to the maids. At that moment, he knew that he could not take Abigail home to his parents as his wife, else they would see him as an unserious person for bringing a woman with an unruly character. And the worst part of it was that she didn't see anything wrong in what she did. Thus, there was no room for learning. Prince Lanre opened up to Abigail, letting her know that they could not continue courting. He went back to his room, packed his bags, told the king all that transpired, then took his leave. Princess Abigail had fallen in love with Prince Lanre, so she was hurt at the way everything turned out. She believed that he chose to support the maids over her, so she went out to the garden alone in tears. Kola saw her and tried consoling her. He told her that that was not the way to treat anyone, even if they were maids. She watched him in shock as he was correcting her. Nobody had ever had the guts to correct her before except her father. Abigail had no choice than to move on with her life, and soon after she forgot about Prince Lanre. She came across a new prince from another kingdom, Prince Deji. Deji, just like Prince Lanre, came to spend some time with Princess Abigail and her father in their kingdom for 2 weeks. But on the third day of his visits, he disappeared. No one knew where he went. They searched all around for him, as they were scared that he had been kidnapped. But soon after, news got to the king that Prince Deji was not a real prince, as the kingdom which he claimed to come from didn't exist. They also found out that some valuables in the palace went missing as well. Deji was just a mere thief who gained access into the palace to steal and not to marry Princess Abigail. She was devastated once again and believed that she had a bad luck when it came to men. But her father told her that it was probably not her time yet, and when her time had come, she would get married to a man who was actually meant for her. Princess Abigail moved on again and met several other men. Yet she never ended up with any of them. There was usually one problem or the other that would hinder their marriage. The king became worried about his daughter and believed that this was not normal. He decided to call on the village chief priest to inquire from him if anything was wrong with his daughter, or if he had done anything in the past that his daughter was now paying for. But the chief priest told him that there was nothing wrong with either of them. He said some incantations and mentioned that the gods had something special for Princess Abigail. There was an important upcoming festival in a few days, and according to the chief priest, when Princess Abigail wakes up that morning of the festival day, the first man she set her eyes on would be her husband. Abigail and her father were surprised. The king asked the chief priest to confirm if really that was the true message from the gods, and he affirmed it. He told them that the gods do not lie and their words were final. He also added that the wedding between Abigail and the man she sees that day would hold exactly 1 week after the festival. Abigail and the king could not believe it because it was just too sudden, but they knew better not to disobey the gods. Days passed and the festival day approached swiftly. The night before the festival day, Abigail was nervous and excited at the same time. She went to sleep with her hopes high, and the next morning she woke up very early, which was unlike her, but she couldn't sleep anymore. She looked out her window and everywhere was so peaceful and quiet. It was just the sounds of the birds that filled the air. So she decided to take a stroll that early morning while the entire palace was still asleep. She quietly left the palace and went straight to the river. She was watching the water flow when she heard a voice ask her what she was doing there so early. She turned around in fear and saw a very handsome man. He introduced himself as Temidayo. He was a popular, wealthy trader in the village. She told him that she was the princess and also let him know about all the chief priest had said. He couldn't believe it. They spoke for a while, and soon after, the village started getting busy with people making preparations for the festival. So they both decided to take their leave to also make preparations for the festival. She got back to the palace to find her father worried as they were all looking for her. But she told him happily about the first man she laid her eyes on. She was so excited because he was exactly the type of man she wanted as a husband. Her father was happy for her. News had spread all around the village about how the husband of the princess was to be chosen, and the villagers could not wait to see who the lucky man was. The day of her wedding, which was exactly a week after the festival, drew closer, and the whole village made preparations for it. It was going to be a huge celebration, as the husband of the princess, Abike, was also going to be the next king of the village, since the king had no son. Abike woke up that morning on the day of her wedding feeling so happy. The entire palace was already awake, cooking, cleaning, and making sure everywhere was set for the wedding. She got ready and she looked so beautiful for her wedding. During the ceremony, the chief priest was in charge of wedding them. He asked Abike to call on the first man she laid her eyes on that day, and Temidayo came out. The chief priest blessed them and took the crown to put it on the head of Temidayo, but the crown didn't sit. It kept falling off his head. He went back and consulted with the gods, only to be informed that Temidayo was not the first man Abike laid her eyes on that day. The whole village was in chaos. Even the king couldn't believe it. He asked his daughter if she was lying, and she said no, that she wasn't. The chief priest made them know that the gods cannot be wrong. She argued that she didn't set her eyes on any other man in the entire village when she went to the stream that day. And Temidayo confirmed it, saying that he usually went to the stream every morning before the village woke up and went about their day. That was why he was surprised to see Abike at the stream that morning. So the chief priest called on all the men that stayed in the palace, because she might have set her eyes on one of them but could not remember. He began with her personal guard, as he was always with her. He wore the crown on each man to see if it would sit on any of their heads, but it kept falling off, as none of them was the first man Abike saw that day. Then the final person, Kola the gardener, he was worn the crown and it sat perfectly on his head. The whole village was in shock. Princess Abike was dumbfounded. Then she suddenly remembered that when she woke up on the day of the festival, she looked outside her window and saw Kola walking in the garden before she decided to step out to the stream. She was about leaving the ceremony out of anger, but her father reminded her that disobeying the gods had its own consequences, and the gods were wise enough, so they had their reasons for giving Kola to her as her husband. She reluctantly stayed back for the wedding, and that night she told her father that Kola was a pauper and she didn't see herself spending the rest of her life with a mere gardener. But her father advised her to calm down, as she was already in the marriage, so she had no choice than to go on with it. Kola, being the new prince of the kingdom, stopped working as a gardener and began staying with the princess. He loved her and took care of her. He did everything within his power to make sure that she was happy. Kola also taught her how to treat her maids and servants better. She eventually changed completely from her cruel ways and realized that the maids and everyone around her began to love and respect her even more. She began seeing another side to Kola that she had not seen before. He was no longer that poor gardener to her. She was so grateful to him for opening her eyes to see the world from a totally different perspective. They later gave birth to a bouncing baby boy, and she realized that she even loved Kola more than the other suitors she had in her past. What we can learn from this story is that sometimes what we look for might be right under our nose, but we fail to see it because our idea of it is totally different. We should also bear in mind that our perception of people sometimes can be wrong. People are not always the way we see them, so we should learn to get close to them before judging them. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and turn on your post notification to get notified when next I post a new video. Bye!